Stories in Time. My name is Ellouise Schoettler. I'm the storyteller. I brought in a story today that's from really ancient Egypt. I like it a lot. I hope you will like it. Once, long ago, many, many years ago, there was a young boy who lived in this town. He'd been born there, he lived there, he knew it like the back of his hand, he thought. His mother was very worried about him. He was tall, he was ugly, and he was stupid. And she thought, what's going to happen to him? He doesn't have anything to make a living with. How is he going to manage? But nothing got in his way. He lived it the way he wanted to. One afternoon, he was walking through the town and he saw a new white stone wall that he hadn't noticed before. And he came up to it and wondered, I thought I knew everything in this town. I don't. So he climbed up so that he could see over the wall. On the other side was a beautiful garden. And across the garden, under a shady tree, a beautiful girl was sitting. Comfortable, quiet, sitting there by herself. He leaped up and was sitting on the top of the wall. And he looked at her. She didn't notice him. He didn't necessarily want him to notice her, but he was curious. Why isn't she paying any attention? He reached into his bag and he pulled out his flute. It's a flute that he had carved himself. And so he knew it so carefully, and he decided to play some of his music. And he began the music, and it was beautiful, and it drifted, he thought, toward her. But she didn't turn her head at all. She didn't notice him at all. So when he was finished, he thought, she didn't even pay any attention to my music. What is the matter? So he took in and put the flute back up to his lips, and he began to play again. And he was playing everything that he felt. That's how he did it. Whatever he was feeling at any particular time, he played that as the music. But still, she didn't look. She didn't notice him. By the end of the afternoon, he realized that he might as well go away. And he did. He jumped down and he went off. But he wondered why. She was beautiful. He wanted to see her again. So the next day he came and he climbed to the top of the wall. And he began to play the beautiful music, but she didn't pay any attention to him at all. And that was the whole afternoon. The next day he was out walking and he stopped around a fire where people were having hot tea and a bit of food, and he sat down with them. They were travelers. And they were talking and gossiping about things. And they talked about the garden. He knew that's what they were describing and talking about. And what did he hear? It was the Pharaoh's garden. The Pharaoh's garden. Here he was, a poor, ugly, do-nothing young man. And he knew that that was not good for him because he really wanted to know this woman, this girl. That night he sat with some other men who had come in with a caravan. And they were sitting around talking about Hobie the magician. That man can do anything. He can make magic that will change everything. Hobie is his name? The young man asked. Yes, you would be lucky to ever meet him. You just walk straight out into the desert until you find him. Oh. The next morning, he picked up his bag, his flute, some food, cheese, bread, whatever he had there. And he started out into the desert, walking, hoping that he would find some man called Hobie. It took a day and a half to reach any water. And when he stopped there to reach and to get some more water, get it in his jar to drink a lot, he was talking to another person that was sitting there, and he said, "Do you know someone named Hobie?" "Yes, I know somebody named Hobie," the old man said. He was very old. He was so old he didn't even have any teeth. "Why do you want to see Hobie?" He said, "Because I need help, and I've heard that he is such a fine magician that he can help you." "Well, sit down and drink your water, and we'll think about it. And then, are you Hobie?" "Well, yes, I am." And after they had rested and talked a little bit, they sat together to discuss this young man's plight. "I can never reach this beautiful woman. She's the Pharaoh's daughter. What do I have to do? Who could I be that she could ever be interested in me?" He thought for a while, and then he said, "If you were a person, a young man, who was very handsome, very smart, had something that he could do that was impressive, then she would be interested in you. How do I get that? I'm not possibly that right now." And he said, "But you can be changed." "Can you change me?" "Yes, I could change you, but there are things you need to know about that. If I ever change you, you cannot change back. You will be what you become." I think that would be good. I think it would be very good. So they went off together, walked out into the desert, and no one saw that young man who was known very well in that town. They didn't see him anymore. But then, after a year or two, the Pharaoh fell into a war himself. And he was losing all of his money, all of his army. Everything was being taken away from him. And one day, this tall and very handsome young warrior came to him, dressed in black from his head to his toes, so dressed in black that everyone talked about the Black Prince. He talked to the Pharaoh and he said, "I can help you get back everything that you have lost. I know how to do it." The Pharaoh, of course, sat down with him and wanted to know more, and he said, "I don't need to tell you any more than that. I can do that." And the Pharaoh agreed that he could have control of the troops, of all of the warriors, and to see what he could do. And he went out into the desert, and he fought with the others that had won away the Pharaoh's wealth and his goods, and he won them back. Returned to the Pharaoh and reported after a long time, perhaps a year, said, "I won it all back for you. It's yours again." "I can't believe that. I find it very difficult to believe." "Well, it's true." "Well, will you come to my palace in a month so that I can sit down with you? You can tell me everything, and I will award you something. You can tell me what you want, and I'll get it for you." "I will be there 30 days from today." The Pharaoh went back to the town. They straightened everything. They cleaned the garden. They fixed everything up. He insisted that the streets be swept, that everything looked perfect, to be ready for this new black prince when he arrived. And he did arrive on the day that he was supposed to. He went over to the castle. They let him in. And he went to the garden, which is where the Pharaoh was sitting. And he was sitting there with his daughter, just as beautiful as she had ever been. The Princess Thutmose, just as beautiful as she had ever been. His heart was just jumping. And they spoke for a minute, and then the Pharaoh said, "What is it you would like me to give you for your reward?" "I would like to marry the princess." "To marry the princess?" "Yes." And then Princess Thutmose stood up, and she said, No. Father, you will do anything that you tell me to, but please listen to my story. I met a young man who came over that wall, and he played beautiful music on a flute he had made himself. It was beautiful. And I was so lonely, and there was nobody here to listen to me. And the music made me feel so full, and I understood it. It was what I thought of, too. And I was in love. I am still in love with that young man. I could never love anyone else. And the Black Prince was sitting there, watching, listening. And he said to the Pharaoh, Sire, forget my asking that the princess marry me. I could never step in to hurt her, to do something that would get between she and someone that she has loved. I, too, have had a love like that. It would only make her so unhappy. And he picked up everything, his bag, sword, everything, and he walked out the gate, and he walked toward the desert, and he walked out into the desert. Slowly, he disappeared, and no one ever knew what happened to him or who he was. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.